Roll call, and Weible present, and Kearns present.
Yep.
Keithley, Gary Combs,
Here.
Mike Tilley,
Yep.
Mike Miller,
Here.
and Debbie Widener.
Here.
Okay, and Mark Bishop.
Forget
Okay.
about that guy.
Hector.
That's right.
Hector.
I thought I said Adam Hector. Oh,
Here.
here. Sorry, Adam. I thought I had you. Okay, just getting started here. I'll accept a motion to accept the agenda as presented. I have a motion from Andy Kearns
I'll second.
to accept the agenda as presented, seconded by Miller. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 7-0. The minutes, we have none. The president's comments. I want to first say that up here tonight we have, in addition to the 7 board members, this is my first official, meeting to be the president. And I will be the president until the end of this year. I'm serving out Mr. Brown's term. Andy Kearns, is this your first open meeting?
Yep.
Okay. And Andy will serve out Mr. Rubel's term. So that's part of the board. Mr. Mark Bishop is our attorney for the association, and he's going to address you as soon as I quit talking, and as hot as it is, that's not going to be long. Debbie, thank you for coming in. Debbie is the newest employee at Terre. She's an administrative assistant at the office and has agreed to help with the minutes and to record the minutes and to keep this board straight and to do other duties as come up. This is an addition because we were unfortunate. Ann Lindsay resigned last week for health reasons, and I haven't been able to talk to her, but considering the things that have happened in the past, it's unfortunate. People have been under a lot of stress, and she just feels stressed. So we're going to miss Ann. We had a meeting earlier. We approved the financials, we approved the income statement, the balance sheet, and cash flow statement as prepared by our accounting systems. Part of the things that we reviewed, just to give you the highlights, we compared the cash that we actually have on hand now to what we had this same period last year. Last year at this time we had $1,042,000 in the bank. This year we have $1,021,000. That's $21,000 less this year over last year. Our accounts receivable were $98,000 last year, and they're $150,000. That's $100 or $53,000 higher, and that's probably explainable by the fact that we had an increase in our road assessment. Our revenues are tracking. We're up $40,000 year over year on the revenue side, and our expenses are $75,000 less on the. Comparing the year over year and comparing the business plan, it doesn't appear that there's very many things that are. It's a sound plan. We're in good shape financially. We have a very strong organization. We think we're probably going to hit, with a little luck, right at the target that we had set for the budget. The only area that seemed out of balance and significant was the legal fees and professional fees, and we spent quite a bit of time on that. We had budgeted for this year $3,000, $10,000 in that account. $7,700 of that roughly would be payable to our Crouch, Farley, and Earring accounting firm, and $3,000 was allocated for attorneys. We had to spend $5,000 through the end of July. I know we paid $7,000 worth of bills in August already. The board as a group said we determined that we would use as planning purposes for the balance of this year a figure of $40,000 for legal fees. That's up quite significantly, but it seems within our planning and budget ranges. So our auditors are Crouch, Farley, and Ewing. Talked with them. Mr. Ewing said that some work is underway. They will start the field work the 30th of August. The preliminary financials we will get probably mid-September, and the final report will be in October. We may delay the open communication meeting and try to get them to present their report to us at the public meeting. Okay, Mark, I guess at this point it's very hot in here. If you have something that you want to share with the crowd, I think it would be good this time.
So thank you. Okay, I'm Mark Bishop. I guess just want to introduce myself to you first. I'm a partner in the Weible law firm. Our firm is headquartered in Hillsborough. It's the oldest law firm in Jefferson County. We have 2 locations. We have an office in St. Genevieve as well. My practice is such that I represent a number of public entities, corporations, individuals, and we have a general practice law firm. The board unanimously voted to hire our firm to represent the association when it was a 5-member board. So it was normally a 7-member board, but 2 members had resigned, Mr. Weible and Mr. Brown. And before the vacancies were filled with Mr. Kearns and Mr. Weible, the board voted unanimously to hire our firm to represent the association. I had no prior contact with or representation with any of these gentlemen or anybody associated with the association before they decided to meet with me for the purposes of hiring our firm. And so that helps me keep everything straight. My goal and our job as a law firm for the association is to protect the association's interests, period. So I know there are competing interests on the board. I know there's competing interests maybe in the crowd. But that's neither here nor there as far as an attorney is concerned. I'm here to protect the association and make sure the association moves forward with however we need to under the law. Generally, there's a $40,000 budget figure. Understand you're not going to be paying our firm $40,000 this year. That's a budget firm for all the professional services. But there will be more expenses this year than last because there is litigation pending and we have to do work to defend the association in the litigation. Once that has settled down, my partner James Kreitler will be handling a lot of the more day-to-day legal issues for the association. I'm more of a litigator. That's what a lot of my practice is. And so I'm intending to focus on the litigation side of representing the association, and my partner James, who represents a number of subdivisions in the Jefferson County and the surrounding region, will be handling questions from the board with regard to the bylaws and contracts and that type of thing going forward. So hopefully very soon you will see very little of me because hopefully we'll get all the litigation resolved and I'll be on my way and you'll have James as a corporate counsel essentially. I do want to give a little general information about the litigation. I'm not going to make a whole lot of comments about it because it's still pending, okay? But I think Mr. Weible asked me to make some comments so that everybody can kind of have an understanding of the of the situation as it exists now, because I just got in the case, just found less than a month ago, just a couple weeks ago actually, and we had a hearing last week. It seems like some of you were at that hearing, because I see some similar faces, but for those of you who didn't have the benefit of hearing me at that hearing, I'm only going to make comments about public information. So the pleadings and anything I said in court is not really private anymore. So I'll describe the litigation up to this point as kind of a mess, which is what I told the judge last Thursday. It's my job to try to sort it out as far as the association is concerned. But having said that, I think it is getting straightened out. There have been a number of motions filed, a number of orders that have been in place restricting what the association can or can't do. Those orders have expired and then been renewed and then reordered. All that happened before I got in the case. Currently, there are no temporary restraining orders, there are no injunctions, there are no restrictions on the association. Okay, that was taken care of at the hearing last Thursday. The litigation initiated by Mr. Reiser has been dismissed. There's still a petition that's been filed by Mr. Tilley, and I'm not going to comment on the merits of it, but there are three claims, essentially. One claim is with regard to the rights of the developer. When a developer creates a subdivision, they commonly reserve to themselves certain rights as a developer to make sure the development stays consistent with their vision until a certain number of lots are sold. And that's the case when this Terre was set up. So the developers preserve certain rights until 75% of the lots have been sold. And the first count of that petition is claiming that 75% of the lots have been sold. Quite frankly, I don't know the answer to that. I just got in the case a couple weeks ago. But that's a fact issue for the judge to decide. The second one is with regard to allegations of conflict of interest with regard to membership or ownership with the country club, which is a separate legal entity. I don't represent them. But there's a request for the judge to determine whether or not people can serve in both capacities as owners or officers of the country club and also serve on the board of directors for the association. The judge will have to determine that. The third issue is with regard to an old consent judgment that was entered in 1989 between the association and the developer, the previous owner of the developer, and asking the court to essentially invalidate that prior order. As you can see, those are the three issues. So those three issues don't really have anything to do with the management of the association. All the prior motions and temporary restraining orders were making all sorts of allegations about the management of the association. All of them have either been dismissed by the court or withdrawn by the plaintiffs. So there's not even a request for any future orders restricting our ability to manage the association. We're going to run this association according to the bylaws and the laws of the state of Missouri that authorize a nonprofit corporation to conduct business consistent with those regulations. Until somebody tells us otherwise, and right now nobody's saying otherwise. So that is essentially the status of the case is just set for an announcement, which is just a court date for the attorneys to give the judge a status update in September. There's no more hearings set right now. Eventually, I expect there will be what's called discovery or exchange of records between the plaintiff and the primary defendant, which is Mr. Combs, as the developer. I'll be involved in that litigation, but trying to keep the association out of that fight as much as possible. Although ultimate rulings may or may not affect the association, but we'll just leave that up to the judge. So hopefully the most contentious issues are now in the rearview mirror and resolved as far as the association is concerned. Again, there's no orders in place. We had 2 vacancies. They've been filled by the remaining board members. I believe that I didn't attend that meeting, but I believe that was a unanimous vote to appoint them to the vacancies. And then ultimately the officers, the president and vice president, were selected at the next, I believe that meeting, the next meeting. I didn't go to that meeting either. But ultimately they followed the bylaws and elected Mr. Weible as president and Mr. Kearns as vice president. I'm not going to answer any questions from the crowd because you probably have a lot of questions about the litigation, but I don't want to comment about any of those in a public forum because I don't want it to hurt the association's case or speak for the association before I really gotten into it. I've also advised Mr. Weible and the rest of the board members not to comment on anything with regard to the litigation. So I know there's going to be like a question and answer session. You can feel free to ask about it, but they darn well better tell you they can't answer if it's about the case. But certainly ask about any other association business. I don't plan on staying for this whole meeting. I've got other actually family obligations that I have to go to. But Mr. Weible wanted me to kind of give a summary as best I can without going into too much of the details, and just wanted to let everybody know, as far as I'm concerned from a legal point of view, we're through the woods on all the competing motions that would affect the management of the association. The litigation will probably, at best guess, is going to last another year before a judge is going to decide those issues. There's somewhat complex factual and legal issues, and litigation is slow. So I expect there's going to be a lot of time where very little action is taking place. The good news for the association, if there's nothing happening, then I'm not billing because there's nothing happening in the case. But as we get closer to a trial, there'll be some more legal fees. But the big bulk of it is really over because we resolved the TROs, the temporary restraining orders, and the request for injunctions. Yeah.
Temporary restraining order. Started with that. It's gone.
Yeah, so that there are no restraining orders in place. They actually expired a couple weeks ago. They were not renewed by the court at the last hearing, and in fact, the plaintiff, there's only one plaintiff left, Mr. Tilley, in their petition, are not even requesting a temporary restraining order or an injunction. There's not even a request for it. So there's nothing pending even asking for a restraint against the association for any activities. There were previous requests, there were previous orders, all that's gone. A temporary order by its very nature is temporary. The judge actually puts in the order when that order will expire. All those dates have passed. There is nothing in place, and I don't contemplate anything happening, although you never know, right? Somebody can just file a motion and I have to deal with it. But certainly now, you have counsel in the case representing the association. Those orders that were put into place, those temporary orders, were put in place against the association when the association was not in a position to even have counsel present in the courtroom. And technically, the association was not even a party to the litigation. I don't want to go too much into that, but it's unusual to have a court order you to do something when you never got notice of it. But it's water under the bridge now.
Thanks, Mark. We're glad to be represented by you, and thanks for the job you've done. We appreciate it. I think it's a good day for you. Okay, now we come to the part of the program where we talk about the committee reports, and I believe Chief Cook is, or were you going to give that, you're going to give the police report?
I guess we're getting some bad weather. They're saying that it's going in and out.
All right, as far as
The
the
live stream.
police, they handled in July 367 calls for various reasons. There were 14 burglary, 11 disturbance, 29 suspicious acts. They made 12 arrests in the month. Looks like a majority of those were for active warrants. And they had a total of 99 traffic stops for the month. And that's about it. So please, is Jonathan going to do the fire or here?
It's either way if you want to do it.
All right, for July, it looks like they had 43 incidents. That fell into 9 different categories. 16 of them were dispatched and canceled en route. 14 were EMS calls, 5 training calls, 3 special duty, and a couple other miscellaneous calls. And that's it for the fire.
It was good to pick up the Daily Journal today and see us, Terre mentioned on the front page. Complimentary to Jonathan in that effort, Mr. Dahmer, the police department, and Mr. Klosser, talking about the teaming up with the Red Cross. If you haven't seen this article, it's good to be seeing that type of articles again. Cody, do you have the Public Works?
I'll be brief. I know everybody's warm. Apologize for that. I probably should have been here when we set up chairs today. Big crowd. That's good to see. Quote Dean Bauman, when I started working with them on a road plan a few years ago, they said something that stuck with me for a while. Informed public is a good public to deal with. So I like to see everybody here. They can hear things firsthand, and then I like to see that. So just going to touch on a few of the big things that's happened. Obviously, we had a big storm that came through. A lot of trees down. We've got most of those cleaned up. We got a few of them that we are going to have to probably call a contractor on to get. They're hung in other trees. One of the big things, we did remove the majority of the playground equipment at the front part. Basically, the stuff is just so outdated and a true hazard. You saw it looked more like a haunted house than a playground. So we did take that out. We've got some irons in the fire as far as replacing that, maybe some future projects, but we'll speak more on that when we have more. Another big thing is we started a joint venture with Terre Garden Club, the landscaping project at the roundabout up front. It's been a slow go, but we're getting there. We built the fence, we placed some rocks. We're getting ready to put the landscaping rock down, and then this fall we'll get some flowers and just keep progressing on that area. And we've got some future ideas for that too. So that's something great. I like to see. Marseille Pavilion. I don't know if anybody's been down by Marseille Beach. The Quan family donated the pavilion. To me, it's fantastic. It's a fantastic addition. Something much needed. And I think a lot of people have already enjoyed it. But we've got to build the handrails still. I believe the grand opening is August 31st. But that's pretty much the last part of that. We'll get that project out of the way. Big project was Lake Darcy Spillway Pipe. That was quite an undertaking. We've got it in. It looks good. Hope it works well. DNR likes it. So, something I touched on a few meetings ago is the Public Works Department and their committees, their subcommittees. We've got subcommittees for. We want to get building grounds. I believe we've got Andy Hoffey who's going to be involved in that. We've got lakes and dams, which Dave Mosier and Robert Montgomery are heading that one. We'll progress with that, but do you guys want to say anything about our progress or what we've done or our goals?
Am I supposed to talk about the fisheries?
Yeah. I mean, so with lakes and dams, I mean, pretty self-explanatory, but there's a lot with lakes and dams that people don't understand. I mean, we've got DNR inspections, we've got fish stocking, we've started an artificial fish habitat placement, vegetation control, water quality. I mean, there's a lot to it, so it's nice to have educated volunteers that are willing to spend their time to kind of help lighten the load. And that's kind of the idea with the whole committee aspect. You know, Andy Hoffey is a very intelligent man, and we've already used him a lot, you know, his expertise. But yeah, I mean, if anybody has any questions too, you guys can catch them as far as specific questions. And that coming up, I mean, main goal coming up, we're way behind schedule, but asphalt patches. Asphalt patches are going to be a priority, so out, in the next week or two, and we're gonna stick on it till the weather breaks, gets many of those buckles and problems out of the way, so. Last time I did a Q&A, does anybody have any questions?
Let's hold that going, it's pretty warm in here.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for that report. You know, whenever I was doing the organization chart and updating it to what I understood the organization to be, it was, I never stopped to think about it, but it was amazing to me to see the structure of the organization and really think about it with the 7 board members and then the 16 employees. And actually, the heart of it is the 16 employees. They do 90 to 95%. Some say 100% of the work. But they can draw from the committees for help. Some of the committees do specific. I thought I would feature them a little bit more at this meeting. So I asked Anna Hatridge to talk a little bit about the lifestyles. That's probably the biggest committee we have with over 50 people on it. We have over 100 people in Terre that are working, and some of them are on different committees. But it's wonderful when you have 100 people working together to do things. And that's what I hope to see again, people working together in the Terre that I've known for the last 30 years. So Anna, you want to talk about lifestyles for us?
Tell me when to put,
I think they will.
they'll tell me when to be fine.
Well,
Okay. If you can't hear me, let me know. Raise your hand. I'm Anna Hatridge. I have been the editor-in-chief of the Terre Lifestyle newspaper for the last 5 years. This is a voluntary position. I don't get paid. The big perk is I can get free newspapers for anybody. We have, as Ms. Weible said, we have about 58 people that regularly volunteer to put our paper together. And it starts with really everybody in this room. When you attend an event or you have a social gathering, take some photos, you email them to me. It's really easy. Because what the Terre Lifestyle paper does is it markets our community to outside sources. And you might be thinking, okay, so people in Bonne Terre, they know where Terre is. Do you know that people in other states pay to get our newspaper? They do, because they came here as children or grandchildren, or they had family members that came here. And so they want to know how we're growing, how we're progressing. And so we like to feature everybody and everything that's going on in our community. So send me your photos, and don't be afraid to name names. I like to know who they are so we can feature them. I have the easiest part of putting the paper together, because all I do is reach out to the 60 or so people that work on every issue. We've got the next person that'll be working on something will be Sandy Bender, who coordinates all the people that peel and stick labels. Not a hard job, peeling and sticking labels, until you do, what, 30,000 or 3,000 labels. Then you gotta sort them all, by zip code. Then you gotta sort them a little bit more, and you gotta count them. And of course, then there's the little process of going to the post office and weighing them out and making sure that the postage is paid for you, so it can run through the machine to stamp on them. So that is a big deal. I don't do that. I have wonderful volunteers, and there are volunteers with the garden club that attend meetings, and they're volunteering at those events, and they take photos and they submit, and we all work together. Could I ask anyone that has been volunteering during the last 2 years, and to stand up, so you can the only activity they volunteer for. It's not the only job they have. They do other things. And just like myself, I have multiple businesses that I run and operate. So this is something we do 4 times a year. The next deadline, put it on your calendar, is October 22nd. You need to get all of your information in that pertains to December, January, and February. I know, like you're gonna know, but you do know that some things, and write about things that maybe happened last Christmas or last January, February. Share those things, share those photos. We love Terre Black. It's an easy way to really promote it, and I'm happy to answer questions if somebody has questions about it. See me after the board meeting.
So much.
Good, thank you. Tracy Webnar is chairing the Fall Festival Events Committee. They had a meeting today at 2, a planning session. I planned on attending it, but I just didn't want to get out. Is Tracy here?
She isn't here, but Michelle is.
Oh, Michelle, would you mind bringing everybody up today?
Hi. I almost guarantee everybody in the next county can hear me. I'm working with Tracy for the Fall Festival. She is official chair, but we're kind of co-chairing it because I was working on it before she came back on board. So if you see the flyer or want one, we are having the festival. Yay! We have 3 bands this year, so we are going to have non-stop music. The bands are Best of Times, Deja Vu, and Gemini, who is going to be starring Johnny Washboard, who I heard does Mean Gloria now. We are going to have, currently, as of last count, 25 vendors/food trucks showing up. We have extended our hand out to the country club to do a beer and wine garden again. We are going to have another Little Miss and Mr. Terre Fall Festival. So if you know any young ones in your family or outside that want to take a part, the age limit is 2 to 8. And it's not based on beauty, it's based on community service, raising money for Shop with a Cop. Applications are up at the front, at the bank. You can contact me directly, Tracy, or anyone on the committee. We're going to have a dunk tank who we're hoping some board members will kind of volunteer to sit on. We're going to have a cruise-in. It's not going to be a full car show, just a cruise-in. Got an antique car, got a really spiffy car, bring it out, we want to see it. They are going to have some giveaways for that. So you will see the flyers, cruise-in flyer, the application and flyer for the Little Mr. and Mrs. And then to wrap it up, you can have a festival without treats, right? Gotta have some sugar. We're going to do a cakewalk. Anybody that wants to donate is more than welcome. We're going to do the walks, multiple walks in between the music. So come out, join the fun, donate some money, get a little exercise going, enjoy the vendors, family time, great food, great things to see, and make the community whole again with our famous festival. Thank you.
What was the date?
I would entertain a motion to adjourn. What time is it? 7:35. Motion made by Mr. Cary. Andy Kearns, seconds. And all those in favor? Aye. Okay, that brings us to the member participation. We have 4 speakers that have requested time. I would request that you address the board, and we don't want to be argumentative, so we'll limit the time with only 4 of them doing it 5 minutes apiece, if that's all right. Don't use the full 5 minutes if you don't need to. But, you know, that would be your time. Mr. Matt Pullen, I guess, is the first.
I hate to be a Debbie down here after all that positive. I just have a quick question. Over the past 8 months, there's been a lot of rumors and things going around, and one of them was that the police force might be changed. And some of you stated that the department was not going to be changed or tampered with. So my question is really simple, and I wish each and every one of you would answer it. Has it been recently discussed by the board and or by Mark Bishop, the new attorney, that the police department should be changed to a security force?
I'll go first with that. Yes. Let's get into the attorney privilege, but I think one of the things that, pardon? Whether we had discussed transitioning the police department to a security force. And yes, that has been addressed. I think part of that came up as an issue as regarding the bylaw changes. Some of the requests by people with bylaws were that we, I don't know, do something guaranteed we'd always have a police department. There's discussion. This gives me a chance to kind of clear the air as how I feel, Matt. I'm only here for 3.5 months, and I'm not going to commit this board to anything, okay? I'm going to tell you what I think and what I view. We have bylaws that served us well. The book that I got says February 3, 1999. We have existed 20 years with these bylaws, and they've served us well. To go in and start changing them is beyond my capacity, and we've asked the attorney to, number one, over 20 years, these bylaws have changed, the legal part of them. Before we even start talking to membership about bylaw changes, we requested him to bring what we have up to date with current laws. And his research and what he's done, and because of pending legislation, he's been in contact with another attorney. That attorney 10 years ago, in a case, said that we had liability. I'm going to get this right, and I'm glad he's gone because I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not telling you what our lawyers said. But there could be substantial liability with regard to a police department. As a board, we're imperative that we look into that. So, to answer your question, yes, we're going, and I want to inject something, we're going to probably, and we may not even look at a bylaw update because it's expensive, and we've got other things to do. So, has it been mentioned? Yes, it's been mentioned, because as any board, you want us to look at what possibilities are. So, this was a 10-year-old case where the board was told that there is liability. So, the board will have to make a decision. I won't be a part of that board, but I expect them to look very closely at what is there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
The only other thing would be, is the security force, do they have, and I don't know this, do they have less powers than a regular police department?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
You got- We're not interviewing security firms, okay?
Yeah.
Next, there would be Joe Canterman.
I got 3 questions.
You want to come up here?
I got 3 questions I want to ask the board once I get your cap. First one is, we do have sign regulations on the book, and they're not being enforced, in my belief, the way they're supposed to be. Is that going to change?
Could you show me what it's at here? Sign regulation? You got it? Okay. If it's in there, I'm not familiar with that part. Oh, okay. Let me, that's in a rule and regulation. Once we get through, I would think, the legal interpretation of the bylaws, Okay. I haven't read it, Joe, so I can't comment. Okay.
It says such as, doesn't limit your ability to put signs up, it gives you authority with temporary signs. As I understand the rule, I get sloppily written, probably can change it, but it doesn't say what kind of signs you can put up. It says signs such as political signs or social events. It doesn't say limited to political signs and social events. Section 4.
But it says, provided they are removed on the completion of the event advertised. There is no event, they're advertising.
Right. That's what I'm saying, the language isn't clear.
So, they're not an approved sign, they're not advertising something. Okay, and I've heard discussion about being, in conflict with Missouri law about, the ban of signs, political signs, and the law actually gives boards, as long as they don't ban them outright, you can regulate them.
We'll ask our attorney, I mean, the way I feel about it, Joe, is we're governed by this, by the bylaws. We've not done very well with the bylaws. They've been here 20 years. My first term on the board, I thought I was president, but I wasn't because we didn't follow our bylaws. So if we can't follow the simple language in the bylaws, then I don't know how many pages there are as the rules and regulations. I think over 200. I guarantee you I'm not going to read them between now and December.
The signs were sent to the attorney for his interpretation, and it was their opinion that we believe.
I understand, Mike, I talked to you personally about it, and that's what you told me, I don't agree with this.
Okay, I think it's not a debate, you know, okay, did you have a first question?
No, second.
Oh, what was the first one?
Second, the policy on executive board minutes seems to have changed without announcement.
Executive board what?
Minutes?
Minutes?
Yes. Is there a reason why they changed?
No, they had changed. I don't even know.
They
what
were posted online, and you can pick up a copy at the office.
Shouldn't be any change. I didn't change.
I went there today, and they told me, they did not hand them out by your orders.
There might be a communication problem here, but, you're a property owner.
Yes, I am.
You're entitled to those documents.
Okay.
Why would I tell you you can't have them?
So you should be able to go out there tomorrow and get a copy of them.
I don't know which minutes you want.
The executive board from last month.
Oh, there's 3 or 4. I mean, yeah.
I would like all of us. I like to get informed of what's going on here.
Yeah, right. There's no problem once they're approved. Laura, you've got the improvements up there, right? Okay, there's no problem. You should go get them.
Okay. I'll see what happens tomorrow, then you'll see me if I have a problem again.
I won't be there.
No, I'll contact you. The third, back to the police issue. A consultant was brought in at an executive board meeting that was a state policeman. Discuss police departments with the board. Are you guys going to ever issue a report on that, on what was discussed?
I wasn't there.
I know you weren't, that's why I'm asking the ones that were on the board. Are you planning to do anything? Let us know what was discussed.
We can.
General guidelines, outline, what happened?
Sure, I can write up a report and everything.
First of all, he wasn't representing the state patrol, first of all.
Correct, I understand that.
He was his
a
own
consultant for
entity.
Right, for another company.
For his own company.
Right, I understand that. I'm just identifying him.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that's clear,
Yes.
that the state highway patrol did not come in and bring someone in.
When would that be?
They would not like that.
You don't have to rush.
Seth?
You don't have to rush. It's been a couple of months since.
I could probably have it done by Friday.
Okay.
Available for Monday.
I'll give you a buzz then. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Mr. Abram? what position you talking about?
Ann, when Ann left, did you post her job opening?
Who was I posted?
Did you post an opening for it?
Where was I posted?
Why would you post it?
Where?
I guess on the office, or you put it on next
Daily
door?
Journal?
Next door to the fire place to put it. Oh, okay.
I think he's asking basically, did you open it up for people to apply?
Yeah, that's the question.
That's the question? No, I had a good applicant, someone that came forward and said, you know, I'd like to help the community. I need to do some things part-time.
Right.
I can do it. And I thought, I needed some help there. Because of the litigation, 4 of our employees were down at Farmington, and we couldn't open the office. That's terrible, not to be able to open the office. Okay?
Was there any discussion with the board when you hired?
No?
I mean, you didn't have, a conversation in an executive meeting about hiring anybody?
No?
So you're in charge of hiring and firing now?
In my administration, the office, I am, yeah.
Well, I understand it, you oversee all the different groups within the association, but I didn't know it was the president's job to do the hiring and firing.
Did you read the bylaw?
I did.
Pretty broad, right?
No, they're kind of big.
Yeah. That's what I do.
Well, I guess my question is,
Bylaw, that's what I do. I'm not gonna argue with you.
well, it's not an argument.
No.
Just before your time.
No, I've been on this board before.
But it didn't take a board meeting to hire someone, but you had to call an executive meeting to let somebody's job go.
No, I didn't.
I find that conflict. You weren't here.
I don't have to do it anyway. These guys got enough to do without me calling them together
So,
and everything.
why is there a board? Why isn't there just a president? There's no need for a board if every decision can be made by you. Nobody else
No,
needs to
I
be
don't
here.
make every decision. We get together as a board and we make policy decisions. We don't make personnel decisions except outside of my administrative area.
So you're making all the employment decisions?
Yes.
I don't know.
I'll call you and ask if you want me to, if it's all right, but
I mean, without even conferring with the other board members?
I think they have a certain amount of trust in me on it.
I am.
Okay, you know, we're getting into argument here. Let's cut that out. Thank you.
I think.
Dwayne Pat is the last speaker.
What's that?
Would you mind turning?
He's not a resident here.
Here, I'll hold it for you. I'll hold it.
No, he's not a resident.
I am. I'll hold this one for you.
I'm an invited guest, actually.
Did you get pictures, please? No, go ahead, Dwayne, we're not getting into
I
that.
just got a question for the board. First of all, I got an opportunity to work with the Public Works Department on Lake Darcy spillway situation. And I'll say,
That doesn't work. That does not work.
Okay, I got a chance to work with the Public Works Department on the Darcy spillway replacement. I got a couple questions there. First of all, I will say, back several years back, they had that subbed out, Luana did going on, Lake Lafitte. It's about a $30,000 project, so those guys, I'm not sure exactly what they got in, but they got somewhere in the $10,000 to $12,000 neighborhood, in that neighborhood, so I think those guys deserve a true pat on the back. I mean, that's tremendous amount of savings that they've done. The question I have when it comes to stuff like this is, okay, everything's all prepared there to do and everything. I helped those guys out with some sub work for them. We had a mislocate of 20 feet on the water line. Okay, at that point, the association, we got our part done with that. Why would the association be digging up water line, 80 feet of it, on when it was clearly mislocated? I mean, I'm not saying I'm against it, but is there some kind of billing process for this, or who pays for this? That's that's not right at that point. Yes, it was mislocated by 20 feet. It was on the opposite side. The pipe had to be cut. 40 feet of that was dug with 2 pipe spotters for 3 hours. We got a $75,000 tractor and 3 operators that work there. Who pays for that? Anybody answer that?
Mr. Tilley's done it, sir. Who are you billing? You're billing the association, right?
Yes, sir. I'm building association, but why would the association be paying for that is what I'm getting at.
Next question. I think you were trying to figure out who sent you the check.
Oh, no. I don't get a check. That's not the problem. I don't, that's going to.
Oh, wow.
That's not but the question I got is when we get there, there's a lot of man hours that was being spent on not the pipe projects. Our estimator, let's just say a hydraulic pump goes on that's about $14,000 to $15,000. Who covers that at that point? I mean, if you guys are digging ditches for free, I've got some work I could use done. I mean, for real.
So these are the questions.
Yeah, who pays for this? This happens, say, 10 times. You got to pick this up. And let's just say you got 3 man hours of tractor there. I'm going to charge you $400 or $500 to dig a ditch like that. And let's say pump goes out. When this happens, this machine's got 3,200 hours on at this point. It's getting some hours on it. You know, I think we should get better into that. When we're digging utility lines, those guys, that's not their area of expertise. Their job is to replace the pipe. The pipe was clearly mislocated. Why are we digging it? And who pays for it? That's all I'd like to know.
Anybody want to comment on that? Okay.
I can comment on that. I know it involves the utility company in this essence, and the part of the reasoning behind some of that that digging was because there was an agreement made between the utility company and Mr. Gillette, because they wanted to move the utility line and us to cut the water line so they could put a pipe in. So we come to an agreement that they would dig some of that back and help us out and get that. That's why the digging was done that way. That pipe was mismarked. I've already admitted that. I don't know how many times I got to admit it and apologize for it. It happened. I apologize. Cody has the same map that I do, that I go off with the locates, and it showed the water line on that side. Did it not? It did. Thank you. So I can't look underground, Dwayne. I can't make it something more than it is now. That's something my map is remarked. I understand where the water line is now. We dug
Why
in.
were they digging it? That's my question. Why weren't you digging? It's your mistake.
When somebody goes out and asks for a locate, I don't go dig for it. I go mark the lines. So my company digs the line. Was that line, did we locate that line? Was it located prior to the digging of the culvert?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's,
20 feet off.
okay.
Why are we paying our association money to fix it?
You didn't pay yet.
Yeah, there's some man hours involved.
Okay. I'm addressing the situation that happened, that there was an agreement between the two entities.
Is it on paper?
It was not on paper.
Of course it's not.
It's in text message, yes.
Oh, it's next? That's
Yeah.
cool.
Mr. Gillette is just as much of a party in that, so why are you attacking me, trying to say that I'm the one in the wrong by not getting it in writing? There was an agreement between the two.
Wait, whoa. Thanks, Roy, for bringing it up. And before this discussion gets too carried away, I think it's probably time that I'm getting pretty hot in here, and these fans aren't doing too good, so I think it's time to call it a night. And folks, thanks for coming out. I hope what you heard the attorney say, you feel as much good news about it as I do, that the association is pretty much out of this thing. That's the message I want to leave you with. Thank you very much for coming.